What's going on, guys? So today we are going to be installing the full V3 Aero kit from Downforce Solutions. So we have a front splitter, side skirts, and rear diffuser. So just going over what comes in the box with the splitter here. We have our two rods, we have two support brackets, hardware, that is the little side fin there. That's pretty much what differentiates these kits between V1, V2, V3. You're going to have different little side fins on there, or no side fins, however you choose. With the rear diffuser, the V3 kit is a lot more subtle than, say, the one that I have on my RS. So you can see that one's pretty big there. This one's a little more low-key, but I really love what Downforce did with this one. It's a really nice looking piece. So you can see here we have the side spats, we have some brackets for mounting. We are not going to be using these brackets. This would be used if you had a factory exhaust. My buddy does have the same catback as I have, and if you do have a catback without a muffler, we'll have to modify the rear bracing just a slight bit, but super easy to do. We'll get into that. If you watch one of my older videos on installing the Downforce diffuser, you'll see what I mean, but we're going to go over all that again. So like I said, this is what comes in the box. Same thing, everything with the V3. You can see these nice aggressive fins for the sides here. So there it is, front splitter, side skirts, rear diffuser. So I'm just waiting for my buddy to pull up, and we're going to get the car in the air and get to work. Hello. Alright guys, so we got the car up in the air on 4 jack stands. Also have the jack underneath there supporting the frame. So the first step is going to be to remove your splash guard underneath the car, and next is going to be to remove the bumper. There is going to be the frontmost splash guard that has a little like a chin scraper piece for, like, if you park on a curb or something, it scrapes to let you know that something's there. We're going to need to remove that, and that's going to allow the splitter to sit flush underneath the car. So I'm going to go ahead and get that removed, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright guys, so we've got the headlights removed, the splash guards removed, and the bumper is off. One thing to note, unfortunately I'm not going to be able to show you the trimming part of this, as far as trimming the little like the chin protector, I'd call it, like the little chin scraper that's underneath on the first splash guard. This car was involved in an accident originally, so it looked like the original owner never got that front piece replaced after it was broken. So unfortunately we don't have that piece, so I can't show you that part of it, but it's kind of self-explanatory. When you take off the bumper, you're gonna have a plastic liner that's right here in the front. Now on the bottom of that plastic liner, you're going to see there's a plastic that's like a chin that comes down and hangs off. You're going to need to cut that flat and flush with the bottom of that plastic, and that will allow the splitter to sit flat underneath. So we need it to sit flat underneath here. So you need to trim the plastic accordingly, so that will slip in. If you don't use that front plastic, you could take that off and not use it, but you're going to run into an issue where the side of your bumper right here, there's an extra piece of plastic that comes here, and you're not going to be able to bolt everything up. In the end, you'll have some gap there. So I'd recommend still using that if you can. Just trim off those pieces. So like I said, unfortunately, sorry I can't show you that part, but it's pretty self-explanatory when you see it. Now that I've said something, you're gonna know what to look for, and it's super easy to do. You can use an angle grinder, a Dremel, even like a little hand saw would work. So just cut off those pieces, make it flat, flush, and that way the splitter will sit nice and flat on there. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get the bumper on top of the splitter here, and I'll start to show you all the mounting points. Alright guys, so I've taken some of the bolts and washers. What you're going to do is take these bolts, the splitter bolts, and you're going to put one washer on, and you're going to take those and you're going to insert them into those front holes as such. So the easiest way to do it is just to lay this flat on the ground and to slip them under and have them poking up like that. And then what we're going to do is take the bumper and we're going to slip that. You can see the holes from all those push pins removed. All those bolts are going to slip into those holes. So one thing to note too, when you are using that front piece of plastic, these front holes here are going to be a little difficult to get the nuts on and to get them tightened down, so you're going to have to get a little bit creative. It's very doable, just need to be patient and take your time with it. But because we don't have that front piece of plastic here, it's going to be super easy to get this bolted on. But like I said, once that's there, it's a little more difficult to get in because of this. You got the mesh right here, so it's kind of tight to get a box in or a wrench in there to grab that nut to tighten it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the bumper, we're going to slip it on top of these bolts here, and then we're going to take another washer, we're going to sandwich that washer on top, then add a nut, and we're going to go ahead and tighten that down. So we're going to go ahead and get this slipped on here and get those nuts installed. Alright guys, so if you find that you're having trouble with it on the ground, especially with these front 5 bolts here, what you can do, you can see I've turned the bumper face down. Now that allows me a straight shot down to work on these. Now remember, when you have that plastic right here, it's going to be a lot tighter access to get to these, so you can bend this mesh in a little bit to get to, you know, to get in there with a tool. You're not going to see that, so I mean, it's not a big deal if you bend that out of the way a little bit. So the best thing to do is to use some needle nose pliers, grab your washer like such, come down here, slip the washer on there, let it rest, and then the same thing, you're going to grab your nut with the needle nose, come down here and screw it in, and now we'll get it in there for you. So like I said, when you have the plastic piece here, it is going to be a little tighter and a little more difficult to do that because we don't have it. We do have more access, but this is, I found, the best way to get to these 5 if you're having trouble while it's sitting flat on the ground. So just one thing to note, if you are struggling with those front 5 bolts, this might be an easier way for you to get access to those. Alright, so we got the little splitter supports there installed. How you install those is completely up to you. It's all personal preference. Pretty much just whatever is aesthetically pleasing to you is, you know, going to be the way to go. As far as like structural rigidity, these aren't really doing much because they are just bolted to the plastic piece that goes across, so they're not going to be holding up like a lot of force. They're mostly for aesthetics, so it's not going to matter where you put these. So go ahead and put them wherever you want. He opted to do like I did and follow the natural body line of the bumper there with the rod, so that way it flows really nicely, looks really good. So just, you know, figure out where you want them. Make sure that you start with one hole. What I do is I start with the bottom first. I put those in, and then I go from the top. I adjust these out slightly. Now remember that one of these is going to be normal thread and the other is going to be reverse thread. So as you turn the center shaft either direction, it's going to elongate like this way, or it's going to shorten. So to make sure you get this side and this side the same, you might have to rotate just one independently to make sure that they're both identical, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's easy stuff. So we got the black washer that came with the kit is going to go on the top of the splitter there, and then we have a standard little silver washer on the bottom. And then flip this over. If you look at the top, you can see we've got a washer on the top there, washer on the top there, and then on the bottom you can see we've got it right there. So that's going to be the support rods. So like I said, that's completely up to you guys, however you want to install them. So right now we're all done with this. So the next step is going to be to reinstall the bumper onto the car, and then we can drill out the holes for our side fins. Alright, so we got the bumper installed back on the car. He's looking really good. Pretty happy with that. If we go underneath those other 2 brackets, that came with the splitter. You can see those are right here on the back. So we had those extra 2 holes, one here and one here. And we take those little Z brackets and we do the same thing. Washers sandwiched with the nylon lock nut. So when we go ahead, so there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either use the bolts they give you in the kit. Because my buddy didn't have that front plastic guard, normally that is secured right here with a T30 Torx bit or a Torx screw. Since he didn't have that, we went ahead and used the bolt that's provided. If you don't want to use the bolt, you can actually use that T30 and go, there's one of these little caps that the T30 goes into. It's more than enough to hold this in place because it's not really structurally doing what, I mean, it's supporting it, but you don't need that bolt right there. It's added security, but on my car, I don't run the bolt. I have the bolt here, but on mine, I just run the T30 factory screw on the top one. But because, like I said, he doesn't have that front piece, I removed the little red part that pops in here that it screws into. So it's just a hole like that, and went ahead and put the washers, the screw, and the bolt and the nut on there. So that's super solid. So just so you know, that's what these little Z brackets go to right there on the back. So now that we've got that installed, the bumper is all bolted up. The next step is going to be taking the side fins, positioning them where we want them. So like I said, with rods, it's the same deal here. It's just whatever is aesthetically pleasing to you. I mean, there's not too many different ways you can do it, but you could space it in more. Personally, I like them, you know, as far back against the little rubber strip as possible. So gonna go ahead and get those mocked up and mark where we're gonna be drilling our 2 holes, get that drilled out, bolted on, and then the front splitter will be all done. All right, so there we have it. We've got the side fins on. You can see how they're bolted there. Now, one thing to mention, when I did my front splitter, Downforce, yeah, don't mind this. This is from that front end damage I was telling you about. But Downforce did provide 2 self-tapping screws for this section here. So you can see there's nowhere to really bolt onto the side piece. So what you do is you screw up through the bottom of the splitter, and that screws up into the edge of the bumper here, and that's what would secure this in place. I mean, it's not too bad. You can see right here it has a little bit of play. So I mean, the self tappers are included with the side skirt, so I was thinking about maybe just, you know, getting one from that pack and just zapping it in here real quick. You can do your own, or if you want to, you could drill a hole and actually do a nut bolt washer type deal like we did on the rest of it. So that's up to you. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, just if you did notice there's a little bit of play here. It looks like a lot. I'm pulling on it pretty hard, so but I mean, that could make a little bit of noise. So I think what we'll do is we'll just zap a self tapper in there for right now just to hold that, and then we can bolt it at some point, or, you know, whatever you want to do. But like I said, just something I wanted to bring to your attention. But yeah, it looks really good. Check it out here. Nice and symmetrical for the support rods. Fins turned out awesome. I really like this V3 design. Downforce did a really good job with the design of that. I really like those. Nice and aggressive. And I also noticed that the front splitter here is a little bit shorter than the V2, so just something to think about. So where it comes out here, let's do a little measurement real quick. It is about, let's just say, like 2 3/4 inches. So if we come over here to mine, I have the V3, I'm sorry, I have the V2, and it is about 3 3/4. So we got an extra inch on the V2. So it's just something to think about. I don't know if they've changed the design overall, if that's just the old design for that that blank, but just worth a note that the V3 is a little bit shorter than the V2, at least from the old one. But it looks really good. I mean, that would definitely help with not scraping as much when coming in and out of curbs and driveways and all that fun stuff. So it still looks really aggressive, really nice, just the perfect touch for the RS. So there's that. We're all done. Everything's buttoned up for the front. So now we're gonna go, I'm not sure if we're gonna go onto the side skirts or the diffuser next. We're running out of time. We had a couple delays today with other various things, so we might not be able to get to all of it today, but no need to fear. Luckily, when watching a YouTube video, days can go by, and for you, it's just a flash of the screen. So we'll figure out what we're gonna get going on next year, and I'll see you in a second. All right, so we're gonna be moving on to the side skirts. So to get the side skirts off, you're gonna be removing 6 of these little push pin clips, and those are located underneath the car. You can see the locations there, and those recesses all the way down. So go ahead and remove all of those clips, and with those removed, you can pull on the side skirt, and you're gonna have to pull pretty hard to get it to pop off, but there's other little clips in here, and the whole thing will pop off. So let me set these down, see if I can do it one-handed. So if we grab here and give it a yank, there we go. So you can see the clips here. So I'm gonna go all the way down and pop that out, and just work your way all the way down, and there she goes. Something. I'm sorry, there's going to be 7, so there's going to be 1 more in your fender liner here. So I'm going to pop that out, and then that's the whole side skirt removed. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out and mock up the side skirt on here. Alright guys, so we got 1 side skirt installed already. You can see how quick that was. So Downforce provides 16 self-tapping screws and washers, 8 for each side. So what we did is I actually just used 7, and that way I have 2 left over, and we're going to use those 2 for the front of the front splitter there, just to pop that corner in like I was telling you earlier. So we'll just zap 1 in on each side right in here just to hold this nice and steady. So later on down the road, we'll probably do what I did with mine. I removed it, and I actually swapped these self-tappers out for nuts and bolts with lock washers or nylon lock nuts. I don't remember what, but I swapped them out for bolts, and it ended up being like super rigid. It was a really nice. So I mean, the self-tappers, I never had an issue with them. I just personally prefer nuts and bolts myself over, you know, the self-taps. So I swapped them out. This would be a good time to do that. Super easy. So when it comes to mounting this, you can mount it as far in or as far out as you want, but just remember, you do need to leave yourself some room for your fin. So this one, I'll show you on the next side skirt I pop off, but there's kind of a flat line on the bottom here, and what we do is just kind of follow that. You can see, you kind of match up. So there's that hole there, and you kind of see where it's flat along there, and then it comes to that same hole. So what we do is there's these same holes on both sides, and I use those as my guide. So you can see I'm practically right on the edge. I'm in just a tiny tad there, and then on the other side, the opposite end, I'm the same thing, just a tiny little tad in. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other side. So those are gonna be my reference points to make sure that I put these on the exact same way on each side. So if we flip it over, you can see, looks really nice. So you can see what Downforce does, I put a nice little bow in there. Looks really clean, follows the body lines, comes out, looks really nice. We take a fin here and pop it on. It's gonna look really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side popped off real quick, just for reference on the bottom, and I'll show you what I'm talking about there. And if you're concerned with the self-tappers,
Don't worry, those will not go through and hit the body of your car. You have plenty of gap in here. Those aren't going to touch. One thing to think about, if you are going to do the bolts, the nuts and the bolts, you do have this piece of foam here. So when you're doing your center piece or whatever you do here, you will have to just cut out a little bit of notch, a little notch in your foam here, just so you can access that nut with a wrench and get your washer in there. So just something to think about if you do want to upgrade to the nuts and bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that guy off, and then I'll show you guys the reference I'm talking about. All right, so here's the other piece now. If you look, sorry, it's really dirty, but you can see this line right here. You can think of that as your straight edge all the way down. So if you follow that, you'll see how it kind of coincides with these indentation, these holes, I'm sorry, on the side, on each end. So there's that hole there, and then that hole there. So those are going to be my reference points when I put these on. So, but yeah, you can follow that line. Like I said, you can put it, you know, as far in or as far out as you want. Just make sure that you have enough meat on there if you are trying to pop it out kind of far. You don't want to be too much on the edge and have the side skirt be, you know, kind of pulled up a little bit. You want to make sure it's flat. So just something to think about, but that's the line I'm talking about. So for me personally, I use those 2 holes on each edge as my reference points when I go to install this. And also when you put it on, make sure that you don't do it backwards and that you have it oriented in the right direction, that you have that little little part here in the back where the fin goes. So, and then you have the bulge towards the front. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and get that guy screwed on, and then we'll get these side skirts popped back on. All right, so real quick, what I was talking about with that 1 extra screw, oh, I'm sorry, the 2 extra self-tappers. So I can get in here. You can see it right there. So I went up directly underneath here and then straight up. So the best way to do it is just to kind of eyeball it from this direction. Put your screw down here and then just look up and you can see where it'll come up at. So you want to make sure you give yourself enough meat on there. But you can see just by adding that, it's substantially more solid. So just that one on each side should be good enough. You can see we got the same thing on this side, so it's on there super solid. So that's all we needed. That's good to go. Got both of these side skirts done here, so you can check them out. Here they are. They both look really good. Pop them over real quick. Oh, we have a little moth hanging out. What's up, buddy? Oh, yeah, get out of here. There she is. Looks really good. So now we're all done here. We got both of these attached. We're gonna go ahead and throw them on the car. All right, so just a couple tips when you're putting this back on. Pulling it off isn't too bad. You can just kind of yank on it. But when you're putting the side skirt back on these clips, it can be kind of a pain in the ass. I was having a little bit of trouble with the front 2 on the other side. Just because you kind of have to, if you see how the clip is, you kind of have to push up and pop it down into that little recess that's on the clip there. So what I like to do is I'll start with one side. I kind of pop this easy one in, and then I'll start by going up, down, until you hear that, I don't know if you could hear that click, but there was a very distinguishable click. So same thing here, I want to go up. Alright, hold on. I'm actually going to go to the other side real quick just to help hold it in place. So, let me get in here. So you can see this can be a pain in the butt. So pop that easy one in, just kind of, we can get it in there. There we go. Oh, nope. It doesn't want to play ball. Okay. So let me get one of these clips in if I can. Okay. It's not in, but it's kind of staying in place, and that's what I want. I want it to hold its location. Yeah, these things can be a real pain in the ass. So, said push up. There we go. I got that one to click. Come here. See if all this push up, down. You hear that click? Up and down. There we go. It clicked. Up. So these are the ones that are giving me trouble on the other side. These front two, it's kind of a pain. So now that I got the other ones clicked in the back here, there we go, got that other one. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this front easy one back out. That'll give me a little bit more wriggle room to push up and down. There we go, there's that one. Come on. There we go. Okay. So you can see that that is a little bit of a pain in the ass. Trying to get this last one. There we go. Okay, there she is. Believe it or not, that was actually easier than the other side, go figure, but it kind of gives you an idea on just how much of a pain in the butt it can be to get this back on. I wanted to do it by myself too, just so you could see that you can do it by yourself. If you have an extra pair of hands, that'll help kind of support one side. But there you go, got that on. So now that that's clipped on up top, I'm gonna go underneath and pop those little push pins back in, and we're gonna be all done with the side skirts. All right guys, we're all done. We got the side skirts on. I'm loving those aggressive fins. They look really nice. So you can see just how nice and flat those are. Looks really good. Check out the front. Really nice. I had to give him a little bit of a wipe. His car was like extremely dirty, so I gave the side skirts and splitter a little wipe down, just so it looks nice and shiny for you guys. Everything else looks like boo-boo, but that's okay. Looks really good. So unfortunately, we did run out of time today. Like I said, we got a little sidetracked earlier. Had to do some things, so didn't have as much time as I wanted to install everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick back up tomorrow to install the rear diffuser. So it shouldn't take too long. Like I said, we are going to make modification to the way that it mounts, just because we have an aftermarket exhaust and we don't have the stock muffler there. So we're not going to be using the brackets that we received from Downforce Solutions, but I'll show you what we're going to be using. You can pick it up at Home Depot or Lowe's. It's literally just, I think it's about like a 1/4 inch thick strong tie, Simpson strong tie. And then you just drill your own hole in it. That's going to be about it. Super easy, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, check this out. I mean, those look really nice. Follows the lines of the bumper, nice and symmetrical. Looks really good. Nice bit of aggression, not too much. Like I said, this V3, it doesn't come out quite as far as the V2 does, but I really like this. It's subtle, it's aggressive, not over the top. Really, really nice. Very happy with how it turned out. Everything lined up perfectly. So yeah, so we're done for today. We're gonna try to knock this out and get the diffuser done first thing in the morning. So you can see we got the diffuser here. We've used all of our assortment of nuts and bolts and screws and fun stuff. You can see that's all gone. It's fun trying to make sense of all that, but you can see what we got left over here. So these are the little strap brackets I'm referring to. We're not going to be using these, so those I'll hang on to for something else. Can always use that. We will be using these. These are for the side spats. Yeah, so everything looks really good. We're happy with it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.
All right, welcome back, guys. It's the next morning. We've got everything out and ready to go. Cars in the air. So just one thing to note with the V3 kit, looks like they did change some of the mounting from the older stuff, or the V2 in particular. So we're gonna have to change just a couple things, but it shouldn't be too much different than the original. I just noticed some of the hangers, they've changed up a little bit. But anyways, let me show you what I mean about the longer brackets that come in the kit here. So there they are. These are the ones that we aren't going to be using. And the reason why is with an aftermarket exhaust, you can see, sorry, look at this. You can see that where it's supposed to go here, it hits the pipe and it doesn't hang where it's supposed to hang. If we come to the other one here, you can see that's how it should look. So this one would work fine. If you want to, you could use that one, but what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go, you can see these two braces here. We're gonna pop off these two bolts and we're gonna use those thick pieces of metal that we got at Lowe's, Home Depot, you know, wherever you want to get them from. They're just thick Simpson strong side. I think yesterday I said quarter inch. They're not quarter inch, they're like 1/8 inch or something, but they're thick enough where they're not gonna bend easily. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna run those, drill a hole, and we're gonna run those straight back, and that will support the rear of the diffuser, and we'll bolt it also on the diffuser itself. So that's what I meant with these. If you have the factory muffler, those will work fine, but like I said, with aftermarket exhaust, it's not going to work, at least on that one side. So I'm going to go ahead and start kind of prepping things up and getting some of the hanging hardware set up and ready to go, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I got some of the hardware partially attached. So to show you the little brace bar we're going to be using, this is the strong tie I was talking about. You can see it's decently thick. I mean, it's pretty robust. You can still bend it by hand, like if you really try, but it's super stiff and stable. So this is what we're going to be using to replace those. Now what I've done is I've drilled out a smaller hole here. That's going to be for the bolt that's attaching to the midsection of the diffuser, and then I have a larger hole here, and what that larger hole is for the bolt right here where those braces meet. So you can see I've got this one here already, not tightened down yet, but you can see there's a washer that's in there. You want to put the bar on top of the washer like such, slip that washer back in and put the nut back in, or the bolt back in, just like it was. So we want this up as high as we can to touch the cross member there. So, and then if we look over here, the long bolt and the little rubber tube and the washers and nuts, it's going to be like this. You can see the bolt hanging down, and it's the furthermost outer pieces that are on this midsection here. You can see that those do have a metal bracket that's attached up here, so we're going to be hanging from that metal bracket. And then you can see over here, this is how it's going to look. That bolt drops down, here's the bracket. This rubber washer slips, or I'm sorry, the rubber tube slips on first, like this, sitting against that. Then we do one washer. That one washer is going to be, just say that one washer is against the tube here. Then the diffuser goes on. Then the second washer goes on underneath the diffuser, and then these two washers sandwich the plastic. So that's how the rear is going to hang. Now on the V2 there was like a little metal, another metal Z bracket. It was like an aluminum piece. It was pretty thick actually, but it looks like they changed it up to this style hanger. But it should still do the job just fine. This is how that setup's going to look. Like I said, it's the outermost sections where the metal bracket is on the outside of the midsection here. That's where those long bolts are going to go. And then, like I said, we're not going to be using these. Instead, we're using these from here, and that will sit underneath, and the diffuser will rest on top of this. So the midsection will be completely secured. So now that you've seen how all of this mounts up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the diffuser up here. I'm going to get it nice and straight, or where I want it. And also too, depending on where because you're gonna have to drill all 4 of these holes for the corners. So here, here, the other one, and right here. So you can physically put the diffuser further out or closer in, touching the factory diffuser. It's up to you how you want it mounted. So, you know, you can have it out further or closer in. And you can also do multiple holes if you wanted to. So you can run it different ways just by changing those 4 bolts and either moving it in or moving it out. What we're gonna do is probably have it pretty close, if not touching the factory diffuser. So that's how we're gonna do it. But anyways, just something to note that you can change the position by where you place those holes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the diffuser mocked up and mark the holes for drilling, and I'll be back in a second. All right, guys, so there we go, we got it on. So you can see we have the little rubber bushing there. Now, because of the way this one hangs, now you can see it's at a slight angle, just because the width of this is, you know, just, you know, barely wide enough for the rear here. You're gonna notice, see, those are at just a slight angle, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it's just hanging there. And when you tighten these up, you don't want to cinch them down super tight. You want to get them to where it's snug, and then give it like maybe one more turn on the nut till this just barely starts to compress, till it gets, you know, really nice and snug and tight. And that's it. Don't over tighten this. So, and we have a nylon lock nut on there, so it's not going to back off. So you can see it's at just a tiny bit of an angle. And one thing to mention too, when you do drill your holes here, what I do is take your washer, and wherever you're going to place this, put your washer on the top piece and mark where that hole is. And then what I do is I kind of scoot it to the side just a tiny bit. And the reason I do that is you can see the fin here. As you drill down, you want to make sure that, I mean, you can see it's angled slightly. That's not going to matter. It's going to hold it just fine. But your washer, you want to try to make it sit flush here. That, don't worry about that. It's still holding perfectly fine. But that's why you want to try to get that hole over a little bit. You want to make sure that this washer will fit on here and not be sandwiched like at a crazy angle. So that is like making really good contact. It's on there super, super tight. And I hadn't even tightened it down that much. So it's really solid in the back. So that's good. You can see both of those are the same way at just a slight angle. You can see the angle there the same way. See, this washer actually sits pretty good. It's nice and flat there. So that same thing here, super solid. But unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be with these. You could put them in the center, but there is no metal bracket hanging down. So that's why we want to use these outside mounting points, because we have that metal bracket up top. So if we come up in here, what I showed you before, you can see right here, that piece of metal, that's what we want to hang from. So we actually have some structural rigidity. If we go from here, not only do we have the heat shield in our way, but there's nothing actually really supporting it. You're just going to be hanging off of plastic if you go off of the other holes. So we are going to want to use this. You can also, if you're not going to be using those brackets, there's the other brackets installed, but the brackets that go up here to hang it, what you could do is actually bend your own little Z shape or however you want to do it, and you could modify this and mount it a different way. Let me show you real quick what I mean about that. So on my V2, you can see I have a little bracket there. So that just gets, see, it changes that mounting position and makes it go way in there. So that way I don't have to worry about running it on the edge super far. So it still hangs from that metal bracket that's up top that I showed you, but you can see how that bracket makes it go. This little Z bracket goes in further, so we're not mounting it right on the edge. So just something to note, guys. You can always make your own and change it up. Modification is the name of the game. So not a big deal, but this works perfectly fine. It actually is super solid, more solid than I thought. But anyways, that's also partially due to how we mounted it back here. So you can see those bars. This thing is, I mean, I'm like really pulling on it hard. This thing is super solid. You can see our room, we have plenty of space for our exhaust. Nothing's touching, nothing's hitting. It looks really, really good. Now, what you're gonna wanna do is when you get it mocked up, you're going to wanna measure the backs here before you tighten it up all the way.
something's just snug, and measure from the fins to make sure that you have the same gap on both sides. So I had to make just a couple little adjustments, shimmy it a little bit, and then have my buddy hold it while I tightened it down, and now they're like perfectly straight. Or I'm sorry, perfectly the same distance, maybe off by like 1/8 of an inch or something, like something super small. Nothing that the naked eye could notice. It's really hard to get these absolutely perfect, but to me, that's pretty perfect. It looks great. So now that the centerpiece is done, we're gonna move on to the side spats. So I'm gonna go ahead and get myself set up for those, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so as you can see here, the way we're going to be mounting the side spat is similar to the way we did the middle section. So you can see our little outermost push pin hole on the corner of the bumper there. We're going to be using that hole to drop our long bolt through, and then those 2 short brackets that were provided in the kit are going to mount to this 13 mil right here. You can see this brace that comes up, and you can see there's that 13 there, so we're going to mount the large hole right there. And then you will have to bend this just slightly to get it to sit where you want it. I already know from the last one that's how it was, so I just kind of put a little bit of a bow in it and then bent this down, and that's just kind of a generic to get me started. You can bend this however you need to make your side spat sit just right. The diffusers aren't like holding pounds and pounds of force, so I mean, we want them stable, but you know, they don't have to be like super crazy rigid, so you can bend these as you need to make everything fit properly. And then we will be drilling 2 holes in the side of the bumper and bolting 2 bolts there as well, and that's going to be the 4 mounting points. So we're going to have the brace, the drop down bolt with the rubber, and then 2 bolts here on the side. And we're going to be doing those very similar to, if you remember how we did the front splitter, how I shot that self-tapper in, but instead of a self-tapper, we're going to be putting bolts. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But if you take a look on the other side here, you can see, I haven't put it on yet, but there's the brace there. That's a 13 mil, and I did drop the bolt down, so you can see that's going to be the basics of how we're going to get these guys on here. And one thing to note, that this bolt here that drops down, this is going to be it's going to go into the hole on the side spat right here. So from Downforce, they have 1 hole drilled for us on these side spats, and this hole is going to be for this guy right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this guy up, let it hang, position it where we want it. I'm going to mark the hole. I'm going to bend the bracket as needed. I'm going to mark the hole to drill for this. I'm going to get a bolt in there. Then we'll be secured on 2 points. Once we have it secured on 2 points, I'm going to have it snug, not fully tightened down. Then I'll mark where I need to drill my holes on the sides, tighten everything up, and that's going to be it for the side spat. So I'm going to go ahead and get the side spat marked up, and then again, I'll do a little quick, I'll show you how I find the holes for the sides here, because remember, we don't want that bolt to be too far out where you can see it, and we also don't want it too close in where we don't have enough meat to grab onto. So let me go ahead and get this mocked up, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so got it mocked up. I got these holes drilled. I was noticing that it was at a little bit too much of an angle, so what I did is I actually cut some of the rubber off. So you can see I shortened that spacer there. If we measure, let's see, looks like it's about like just under 3/4 of an inch. So your application may be different, but we had to trim just a little bit off. Not a big deal. If you cut too much, you can always slip another piece back on. You're not really going to see it in there, so you can have little Frankenstein bits. Not a huge deal. But anyways, with this in here, if I go ahead and slip that in and push it up, let's see, I gotta find that little recess there and push it up. Bam, right where we want it. So that looks really good. Like I said, I had to trim that. And also, remember I told you about bowing that metal. You can see, you just take it, and if you have it snug, go in the middle of it and just kind of push it in and bow it until you get it where you want it. So like I said, it's not going to be under huge force. Mine, I did the same thing on my car, and it's still holding its shape perfectly fine, and I had to bend that one as well. So just, you know, make it how you need it for your application. Like I said, everyone's car, you know, you may need to do it a little bit differently, but
that should be the case for everyone. So don't worry about bending this piece. Like I said, get it snug. Once you get everything mocked up, you can kind of fiddle around with it and get everything where you want it. So that's that. And then as far as drilling the holes, so I got these 2 bolts. You can see them right there. What you want to do is kind of sit back, and you're going to take your drill and look at the inside of the car, look at the outside of the car, see where the bit's going to hit. So look, if you look, you kind of look back from it, and you can see that the bit's going to go, you know, into that flat section of the bumper there. Remember, we don't want to come too far out because we're going to go into the side here. We don't want to see those bolts, so you can see how everything's nice and hidden. But remember too, we also want meat up there, and it's kind of hard to see, but we also want some meat up there. We don't want it too close to that edge of the bumper, so it's not, you know, grabbing on enough. So you can see the washer sitting on there, nice and flat, nice and perfect. Looks really good. So it's one of those things, I mean, you could measure and whatnot, but to be honest, it's easy just to eyeball it, get it on that flat spot, you know, look 3 or 4 times before you drill, go slow, and just zap your holes. You can put them wherever you want on that section. I do one kind of close up front here, and then one towards the back. So you can see that on the side is super stable. And once we get this, it'll be super stable as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish buttoning this one up. I'm gonna do the other side, and that's gonna be it for the install. So let me go ahead and get these all finished up, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, there we go. It's all installed. Really happy with how it looks. Turned out great. I love this V3 kit. It's nice and subtle, yet, you know, just the right amount of aggression to it. So if you do need to adjust these, like I was saying, you have 3 ways to do it, because like I said, on this one too, I had a little bit more of an angle than I wanted, so I did cut that already, but I just cinched down on it a little bit more. That rubber hose will compress, so that was able to pull it up a little bit. And then the inner support rod there, you can see I pushed that in some more and bent that, so you can kind of bend that. You can tighten up on this. You can cut this down a little bit more if you want to, the rubber hose there. Those are going to be your 3 ways of kind of adjusting this and getting it at the angle you want it. So we're really happy with that. Love how that turned out. Everything matches up really nicely. And also make sure you measure. Well, what I do is I measure from the inner piece here of this fin to here, and make sure that we have an equal length all the way down. So yeah, it looks great. I love it. My buddy's really happy with it. There it is. There's the rear diffuser, side skirts, pop around to the front splitter here. Bam. Downforce Solutions full V3 Aero kit for Ford Focus RS. Looks really good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this puppy on the ground and see how it looks. All right, guys, there we have it. So this is the full V3 kit from Downforce Solutions. I really love this kit. Subtle yet aggressive. Those fins are on point. And that rear diffuser is just absolutely amazing. I love it. Very nice. Alright, so that's it, guys. There it is. Hopefully this video helped you. I know I get a lot of questions about my Aero, and people just, you know, asking how to install it, and that's what led me to make my first few videos for the V2 kit. So this one might be a little more in depth on like the kind of the little fiddly things. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to show you the trimming
of that front plastic piece just because he didn't have it on his car, but in the other video I go over that as well, and I have that piece on mine, so hopefully you can put the two together and figure it out. But you'll see when you go to slip the splitter on where it's gonna hit. So that's it, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and until next time, keep on wrenching.